Shane, I don't know if we should do that on.
Oh my God.
Oh, you think that was too much?
We're definitely getting the explicit rating on Apple with this episode.
Whoa.
I am quite bullish on one thing though, and that is
Shane has such furrowed eyebrows right now. I gotta know what's going on in your head, man.
What am I saying? Am I saying something? Am I going off on it?
I'm just gonna
You just killed his
How did
train
I
of
get him
thought
on
like
that? Out of everything, dude, Grok was roasting you, and that got you.
Thanks everybody for listening. Shortest episode of the bucket we'll have all year.
we're back.
Hello,
Steven's
friends.
Back.
I am back.
Yeah.
You guys survived a week without me. You know, I
I don't know
almost
if we survived, but
What?
we're here.
I was
You were
gonna
in
say
my
I was
heart, too.
listening. I was listening to your guys' episode from when I wasn't around. By the way, you guys were like, "I wonder why he's gone. I hope he's okay." I was playing hooky and skiing.
Nice. Nice.
Sorry
Where were you-
to
where were you
bail,
skiing?
but in West Virginia.
Born and raised on the playgrounds where I spent most of my days.
So
Sorry.
yeah, it wasn't for anything bad. My business partner for Backer Club kind of made a last minute trip, flew up. We wanted to get a ski day in for him because he lives in Florida. We wanted to get a ski day in for him before our two families go out to Whistler, Canada together for a big ski trip. Not next week, but the week after. So, anyway, I was having a little bit of fun. What I was going to say, I feel almost a little bit bad because I was listening to y'all's episode and you guys had such a good conversation without me. I'm kind of like, maybe I shouldn't be in these anymore.
That's what we were thinking. No, just kidding.
You could just go ski. It's fine.
I'll ski every Friday instead of recording the bucket. And
What
Wow.
you should do is like jump on the call as you're going down the slopes. I don't know if that's even possible, but
That would be funny. You've seen those videos where the guy has got the green screen and the computer
Yeah.
in front of him. He's doing a Zoom call and he's like on a motorcycle or like
Yeah.
jet skiing or something. It's so funny.
that makes me think of the like the one
It's like
episode
bouncing.
of the one episode of Mostly Technical where Aaron, they were like Caleb was launching Flux and Aaron is like in his truck like doing a mobile call and I'm like, that's what I'm gonna be doing as I'm going down a ski slope.
Oh,
Hey guys.
by the way, so Tendai, hi Tendai, our faithful listener, and hello to our new listener, Aaron Francis. He's been listening in on the show, apparently, is what he tweeted. So hi Aaron, hi Tendai. How you guys doing?
now he's got to listen to another episode, and now he's like,
He said he's been catching up, so that's
These guys
they'll
record
get to
for
this
so
in-
long.
Yeah,
Whoa.
we're probably, he's not doing anything. He's not busy, right? He's got
Totally.
2 hours a week to listen to us, I'm sure.
who doesn't?
Oh, somewhat related to what you guys were talking about while I was gone. Did you guys see that? Is it ByteDance? Right, like TikTok. They released their links, universal UI framework, like a React Native competitor.
I have no
They
idea what
have
you're
used
talking
for
about.
some of their stuff.
What is ByteDance? What is this?
That's the company behind TikTok.
Is it spelled links like the cat?
LYNX.
Yes. So what is
But-
this?
The reason I brought this
Oh
up, it's
my
just
gosh.
it's like React Native, just their own version. It's using some different like thread stuff, I believe, on the mobile jazz so that you're not blocking the main thread in order to do background stuff. It just reminded me a lot of what you guys were talking about kind of in the later parts of your episode, and how it would be great if there was like a way to have flux, and then you would know if I'm compiling for the web, it becomes like an HTML element, and if I'm compiling for iOS or Android, it becomes the, Android.view, or the, what is the iOS version of a view component that's native. But anyways, so like that's what Lynx is doing. That's what a lot of these, I think. Well, okay, asterisk. I have no idea how React Native works, so all of these like terminologies are very, and like the way these things work is new to me. But anyways, I just saw a lot of like tangents
cool.
to what you guys were talking about. So maybe check that out. They're using some sort of a was it like a Rust based bridge layer? I think one of the hangups with React Native is that it's got to have some way to get like JavaScript to communicate with the native components, and that can be a slowdown. And so that's why Lynx is kind of interesting, because they're just changing how that works a little bit, and it's supposed to be better performance and a better UI experience, and you can offload slower background tasks to a different thread and jazz. But anyways, just as you guys continue down your native PHP work, maybe you'll have some inspiration.
This is kind of cool.
I need to.
And the rest of this episode is them reading
No.
documentation. Thanks everybody for listening. Shortest episode of the bucket we'll have all year.
The first thing
And
that I went
6
to was a Reddit thread, and the first
Yeah.
comment was, "Babe, new JS framework dropped."
Yeah.
Lol. Yeah, that is how it is, though. I don't know. Yeah, this looks interesting. I'm not gonna lie. More stuff doesn't hurt, but again, it's like another massive, multi-billion-dollar corporation that's rolling out these free tools. So it's like, does NativePHP stand a chance in this space occupied by these giant tech companies?
We're just gonna be the next multi-billion-dollar corporation that rolls out of free tools. Duh.
That's the way I love that. Yeah.
If you can't beat them, beat them.
I just thought, if nothing else, maybe if you guys learned about it, you could see, inspiration, or like, gosh, I wonder how this is done, right? Because they are taking that concept you guys were talking about, where it's like, Flux button, and then that gets compiled into 3 different things, depending on where your target is, and it might be cool to see how
You're
that's done.
behind this, aren't you, Stephen? This is your thing.
Nope.
Nope. You're
I
on
wish.
the show, you're getting our secrets, and then you're taking it over to China, and you're building it over there. And you weren't skiing, you were in China.
Skiing.
I knew it.
He was skiing. Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
I hate TikTok, but ByteDance as a company, they engineer some pretty legit looking stuff.
I want to say to this point. So there's going to be lots of things like this. And to be honest, I mean, isn't Flutter kind of similar to this, or React Native is kind of similar to this anyway?
Mm-hmm.
This is when I was working on Android a lot, I was telling my dad about some of the things I was working on, and he's like, I still just don't really understand what it is that you're doing. And I'm like, look, if you go to any developer and say, as a client, and I want an app, I want a web app, and I want an iOS and an Android app, no one's going to reach for Laravel. No one's going to reach for Laravel and be like, oh, this is the tool that I will use. However, if you ask any Laravel developer, if you could just make a regular Laravel app and compile it into Android and iOS and web, would that be something that you would be interested in? Is that something that you can now take to your clients and chop around? I think the answer is absolutely yes. We're not going for trying to change the world and how the world does things. It could end up happening, though, because Laravel's growing at a significant pace. There's a lot of developers in it already, and it is becoming like more, and maybe I'm just brainwashed because I deal with it all day, every day. But I think that it's like
What
the best
has
way
Simon been bribing you with?
China. So actually, we're going to announce we started this new company called ByteDance. We have this tool called Links that
You might know us from an app called TikTok.
yeah, I like TikTok. I like TikTok. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's my take on that. Like, there's going to be more tools like this. That's not. I think Simon once in a conversation we had at one point was like, it's not that we're trying to. We're not trying to do everything for everyone. We're focused on our community and empowering our community to do something new, to do something that they couldn't do before in the Laravel way, which to me is like make it as easy as possible, make it a single command or maybe 2 things you have to do, or just make it kind of magically happen in the background with a small configuration, something to that effect, and give them more power, give them more abilities. And it actually will make developers more profitable in the long run, because it's like, I don't just do web. Well, it's twofold, at least twofold. So it's not only do developers have the ability now to build these native applications, which truly are native. And I have to emphasize that. I can't emphasize that enough, because I think that having native apps running on your phone was always misconstrued, because they were always running a web server to some effect. What am I saying? Am I saying something? Am I going off on it? What?
No,
did I say something?
No.
Okay. All right. I'm like, what did I say? But not just that, but like these companies, they don't have to now, once this is done, they don't have to employ 2 or 3 different teams to do all this. It could be seriously 1 or 2, just one team that's doing web and Android and iOS, because it's the same framework. All right, Simon, what?
Yeah. I think what do I think? I think the thing that's really compelling to me about doing this stuff everywhere in one language rather than dividing it up and trying to do it in lots of different languages is something that we haven't really been able to explore yet. And people still seem reluctant to do it even with JavaScript, even though JavaScript is pervasive. It's like they're so busy in the JavaScript community, like rebuilding everything from scratch, kind of because they've just, started there in the last maybe 10, 15 years. But, on the back end, I mean. And they're sort of also seemingly reluctant to like adopt full stack frameworks, which means that everybody's got to always piece these things together themselves anyway. And then all of the other tools and languages, they're basically like content just being in the space that they're in. Swift we run on phones and Macs and that's it. Oh, there's now like Swift, server-side Swift. So that there's one, I don't even know who's doing that, but there's like a contingent of that community that's actually trying to push to use Swift on the server, which is kind of cool. But then, I can't really speak about Android. Android just feels like a mess to me. It's like you've got C, you've got Java, you've got Kotlin, which is just Java, right? And anyway. So, but none of these ecosystems are like seemingly actively pursuing, let's do this thing everywhere and see if we can make the whole experience better end to end by doing so. I think, in fact, probably the only people that have got semi-close to that has been Google with, I can't even remember the name of it. Some binary data transfer protocol that they introduced a few years back that was like supposed to be the JSON killer because it was like strongly formatted and encoded, and you didn't even have to write your format documents, or when you did, it could write the actual document out for you, or whatever. I don't even really remember, but this kind of like if you do this once, it will work everywhere, and then you don't need to think about it ever again. But it wasn't really enough because that was only like data interchange format. It wasn't really like the programming language. I think it all changes when you're using the exact same code on one side as you've got on the other, from server to client. But we'll find out. I guess we'll find out in this year.
I will say, all right, from a more outsider perspective, right? Because I have not been involved in any of the work that you guys are doing with this.
Neither have we.
Okay. The Twitter posts are just AI generated images.
Aaron Francis did it all.
So as more of like a potential target user of the tools that you guys are building, rather than the person making the tools, right? And just give me your feedback on this. I feel like if I were you, or maybe I should say where I see the most value for native PHP is really leaning into the slogan, the tagline that is Laravel, right? The most productive way to build brackets, web software. Their tagline technically just says software, but to me it's like mostly web software, right? But for the work that you guys are doing, that can suddenly become the most productive way to build web and mobile software. And I think embracing what I feel like the reality is, and feel free to push back on me on this, but like I feel like the reality is native PHP will be a high value tool for companies or developers that want to build non super crazy mobile apps, right? Like if I'm going out and trying to redo Duolingo, that has like one of the fanciest mobile UIs I've ever seen in my life. This is probably like not the tool that makes the most sense for that. But if I am, oh, really?
Sorry,
okay,
we're
be
both
interesting. Then.
We're both
This'll be
thinking
really
the same thing.
Sweet. Well, I'm excited to hear this then. Well, then, yeah, like I guess push back on me on that. Like to me, this is what almost in a way Laravel to me excels at, right? Like if I'm going to try to build the next Visa network, I'm not pulling Laravel in for that. It's just not the right tool for the job. And so I feel like there will be a subset of the type of apps, mobile apps, where native PHP would represent this enormous productivity and value boost gain, especially once you wrap it into the greater like ecosystem that you have, which is what Simon just said, having the same thing from server all the way to client. So now push back on me. Why? I guess my whole point here is I would sort of lean into that really heavily and try to think of it as like we're doing this development so that from what is currently the most productive way to build web software, it can also become the most productive way to build 80%. I'm throwing out a number, 80% of any software any company or person could potentially need, no matter the scale, for like desktop and mobile as well.
Devil's advocate.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about it as like an appeal to the wider programming community, as like this is the tool to use, I just don't think it will, because they're still having to shake that PHP bleh that people have. So I'm just not interested in doing that. I don't. The people who have come out of the woodwork to go, PHP, no. I'm like, I don't really care. But I'm not going to win those people over by just saying that it's a good tool, or more productive or whatever. And neither has Laravel or Symfony or any of the other PHP things. Those people who are like entrenched in PHP is gross. They're probably going to die thinking that, which is fine. I think the place that it potentially has some sway is amongst the wider PHP community, people who already embrace PHP as a way to build applications. And that's what they're doing. It's a web or mobile or desktop. They're all the same. It's just an application. And I think it's easier. Some of them will still be like, well, this isn't the right tool for the job. Like you said about Laravel and a payments system. I disagree with that because I believe that you can use it. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should, because not but for language or technical reasons. Sort of the framework's technical ability, I think it's quite capable. I think the other reasons around it will be more like business and risk, security reasons, and that there are other languages, ecosystems, and communities that are more attuned to a certain level of the risks that you would face doing that kind of a business, that would say you probably shouldn't use Laravel for this. And I think that same mentality is there amongst even PHP and Laravel developers around mobile. They will say, yeah, we like using PHP, we like using Laravel for doing web applications, but we don't think it's going to be good to do mobile applications. And that's fine. I think we have an opportunity to show them that it can be good for that. That's the point that we've got to get to, I guess, is, well, it hasn't got to get to, but if we wanted to really like go big, that's the place where we've got to like attack, because it's adjacent to what we already have, right, or what we already know. But yeah, I think I agree in principle with the premise, and I think most people should think around, if I'm gonna use this to build anything, I probably don't want it to be like too significant right now. But that's not me saying you shouldn't. I think you should try and push the boat out.
Let me rephrase what
I will build Duolingo for you in HTML and CSS and show you that it can be done.
Let me rephrase what I said, and then let me get your guys' pushback. Okay, so I think the point I was really trying to make is that, to me, the ideal customer of even Laravel today, right, is the business that says, I have $100,000 to go from nothing to a pretty amazing sellable web product, right? Even if you had $100 million to build an app, that's not to say Laravel couldn't do the job. I'm just saying where it really excels, right? Because as soon as you have $100 million to build an app, like, sky's the limit. You can open up to any pool of developers, any tools, etc. Where I feel like Laravel kicks ass is when you need to just produce an incredible amount of features for very, very little time and therefore money. So when you have $100K, like, suddenly the number of frameworks and ecosystems that you have to fulfill that requirement gets much smaller. To me, it's like basically Rails, Laravel, maybe Django, but like even some of the Go stuff I've been seeing, or like Rust frameworks, like you just can't move as fast, right? And so I feel like the value proposition for native PHP on mobile is much the same, where you can go, hey, I'm a business that has $100K to build me a web app and an accompanying mobile app what, like, you developer, what do you have available to you that can let you hit these requirements with that kind of money? And it's like, oh, that's a really hard proposition. But between Laravel and native PHP, like, that actually becomes a viable option because of how productive it is. And so it's not to say if you have way more money, it's not an option. It's just like your ideal customer, to me, is that type of scenario, right? It's going from nothing to a ton, an amazing amount of stuff in a really short period of time, and therefore a lesser amount of money, and therefore the value proposition is incredibly high.
Yeah.
Now push back. Is that yes or no?
No, I think that's right, but as you've kind of said, it's not at the exclusion of other
Not the exclusive
options.
It's just ideal.
Yeah. So
Shane has such furrowed eyebrows right now. I gotta know what's going on in your head, man.
yeah, go on, Shane.
I think that, excuse me. I think that, all right, when you're talking to a developer versus a software firm, you're going to get different answers. With $100 million, you're not going to find a Stephen Fox or a Simon Hamp or Shane Rosenthal to do this. You're going to find a firm that specializes in this. You're going to look at their track record, and if they have any kind of track record, they've been doing this for a long time. If they've been doing it a long time, they probably haven't been using Laravel more than 5 years-ish. I mean, depending on the firm and et cetera. I mean, there's obviously stuff like Kirschbaum and
Vehicle?
Stoppers. There you go. No. Titan, thank
I'm
you.
about to say, let's shout out the Titan.
Matt.
We like
Hey,
them,
Matt.
Titan. Yeah.
Hey, bet. And Vehicle. That this is what they do, right? And so people are... Bottom line, I think you know what I'm trying to say there. You're not going to seek that kind of... you're not going to find a single person. What I'm really getting at is that we are going to reach for the tools we are most comfortable with. Whether that's the best thing for the company, the best way to solve the problem, almost always it's not, and it's almost always not even the answer you're actually looking for. You're wanting to get it done for X dollars as a client, as the customer. You're wanting to get the job done for X dollars. You don't care what the code actually looks like. You don't care if it's formatted properly. You don't care if there's tests necessarily. Now, when you go to sell the company, you want to know if there's tests because that's the equity built into testing. So I think that where does native PHP for mobile fit into all this? And I think that it's, first of all, the fact that it was never even questioned if it could be done or not before the last couple of years, and Simon answered that question. It can be done. If it can be done, we should explore it just for exploring's sake. Regardless of if it's a dead end, it's a dead end. And I don't know what defines that actually. Like if it can be done, it's not a dead end. We are actually building things here. And then the sellability, the credibility, and the developer adoption. We're at day zero with all this now. 5 years from now, who knows, right? Like it's not only going to be everything that we're thinking that we want to have done in the next year or whatever. Is not only is that all going to be done, there's going to be even more things that we haven't even thought of yet that we'll have the capability of doing. We'll be able to make this an easier sell for any other company. The value that it adds to any single person or Titan or firm is that, again, you don't have to learn any new tools, maybe a library to interface with the native functionality, or native flashlight or camera or NFC, whatever. You're not going to have to learn anything new. And that to me is the best thing that anybody could say. Yes, these other technologies exist. Yes, there are other ways to do things. If you really boil it down to that, though, I looked into Flutter a year ago or so, and I started playing around with it a little bit, and it was like, it's a whole new thing I have to learn. And their docs are extensive. It's not just a simple, there's the environment you have to figure out, there's communicating with the backend you have to figure out, there's authentication you have to figure out, there's all the local storage things you have to figure out. There's all sorts of things you still have to wrap your head around, that if you already are a Laravel developer, you already know these things. Nothing really changes for that. And I think that, and Simon and I have hinted at this a few times, one of the really exciting things that we're both excited to get to is that if we know that Duolingo interacts with a third party, not a third party, an API, right? There has the data is stored. If I log out on one device or log into another one, it's there. When we know that you're building your front end, your client, whatever, with Laravel, and we know that your backend is also built with Laravel, we can do some really magical things. We can make authentication seamless. We can build so many things into a package because we know how you're going to interact with this. You just set a couple environment variables, and so many things can be automatically done for you. Nobody else can say that. Not that I know of. And maybe they can, but again, you'll have to learn something new. You'll have to do something that you're not already doing. And this is already done. Like you already know Laravel. You already know how the API works. You already know now with this simple commands, this simple interfacing with a config file is really all that the way that we're both kind of, I think, thinking about this is just changing a couple things, changing a couple keys, changing a URL here or there of where your actual API is going to be. And we'll handle everything for you. And there's more than that we haven't even thought of, that we're trying to get to day one instead of day zero. We're trying to get to day one to see what day two might look like. And that for us is exciting. As a developer, that's exciting. But I think like contributing that towards the community as a whole, that's where I've heard this say like, oh, I can't wait to see what the community does with this. And it's like, yeah, you're just selling a product. Now I'm actually kind of in this Android driver's seat of like, I can't wait to see what people are actually going to be able to do with this. Duolingo, when you said that, I was like, actually, I think that's a perfect use case for native PHP. Perfect use case for this. Because it's yes, it's HTML, CSS, JavaScript is what it all compiles down into for now. Tools like what you pointed out and the ideas that we had of like taking some known library and converting it into the XML that you need to run native. That can all be done in the future. I think that if you were tasked with just building Duolingo as a website and make it mobile friendly, make it responsive, that's not a very hard task. And you literally just run a single command and it builds iOS and Android. Literally, that's all you have to, and it's done. Like there's a couple of things you have to tweak maybe, but that's done. I think that's a perfect use case for it. I think the graphics are great. I think there's some assets, there's some images, but you don't have to fetch those assets, those images, a lot of images, from some CDN someplace. It would all be loaded on the device. So it's actually going to be faster. You actually could end up with a better experience altogether. Not that they're all pulled from a CDN when you load it, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think we're in a good spot with this, and I think that I think the eyes of the world will open to it as we start to shed some light on what this can do.
I think that's absolutely right. I think it's too early to say, like you've got these well supported long running projects that are like the incumbents, and I don't even see it that way. Like we're not going to try and take market share from them. We're just enabling developers to do things more homogeneously with what they're used to, so I don't think that even, it's the market grows, they get their slice, their percentage of the market might shrink, but overall size of the market that they address is still huge, and our thing can still grow in that space as well. So it's just like, I don't even see it as like taking stuff away from people. I think people will still use React Native and Flutter and that as well as this.
For sure.
And so, in some cases, maybe even the two of them together. Who knows? That would be a bit crazy. But I am quite bullish on one thing, though, and that is that HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are fantastic technologies for building user interfaces. They are, hands down, the biggest format of user interfaces in the world. There is no language that occupies that space, even remotely close. Not Swift, not React Native, definitely not Flutter. It doesn't matter how many developers there are and all of this, pretty much everybody knows how to write HTML. And with Tailwind, you don't really even need to learn CSS. And with the frameworks that are out there, you hardly need to know JavaScript either. And you can get really far with that. And the browser engines, the web views, they're basically the same. When they improve performance, everybody's performance improves because of it. You can't get that with React Native or Flutter or these. Their underlying technology has to improve its performance in order for anyone who's using that technology to see a performance improvement. And I don't think performance is the only metric to care about here either, but it's just like, if you stick with the web technologies, you know you're golden because there's so much that you can do with that. And the only one, and that's been really interesting to me over the last decade, was Ionic. As like, well, I can use my existing web skills to build native feeling user interfaces for mobile. But it's really been a bit like lackluster with the back end side, you know, like how do I actually build the application logic, and it's all a bit messy at best. And I think this is where NativePHP kind of can come and sit in the middle there and go, you get the robustness of PHP and like the paradigm that you're used to with PHP and the tooling that you're used to with PHP, like Composer, like Laravel. And you can use all of that to build the web front end that nobody really lets you do unless you're doing PWAs, which you know are balked basically on Apple, or Ionic, which you kind of have to embrace their whole ecosystem to do that. And now you can actually bring whatever tools you want, which the open web, you know, this, I can go and use React. Or no, I don't want to use React. I want to use Vue. I want to use Svelte. It doesn't matter. You can use any of those things, all of them, none of them. You could use, you could make your app a canvas element and use Lottie animation library, you know, by Airbnb to do all of the UI interaction if you wanted to. And if you're happy doing the like JavaScript bridging, which you would do on the web anyway, to call the backend, then your backend is still PHP, and you can write all your business logic in PHP and JavaScript. So it just opens the floodgates to all of the technology that the web has to offer in a native context that's not sandboxed by like PWA or the typical sort of web shell gubbins, because it's not the web that's doing the work, it's PHP that's doing the work. And I just think that is like the biggest thing for me, you know, personally, because I don't really want to have to go and learn to use other UI libraries just to build apps that I know how to build in HTML and JavaScript.
To that point, something before I started working on Android that I had no idea about was how, first of all, PHP, I never asked this question, I never thought of this question. What was PHP written in? C. It's a language, right? It is, and you can compile it for just about any piece of hardware you want to. You can turn it into anything. And what does PHP stand for? It's pre-hypertext processor, right?
Yep.
Hypertext meaning kind of HTML, hypertext markup language. So it is just a way to render out HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It does it in a very opinionated way, I think. but it does it's completely optimized. It's the only language that I know of, at least, that is completely built specifically for HTML. You go to .NET or C, whatever, C#, that's really not, it can do the HTML and stuff, but this is built for HTML. This is built for user experiences.
Yeah, I think the real thing that makes PHP stand out there is it's built for HTTP, the layer. So
yes.
And because of that, it's adopted a paradigm that almost no other programming language runtime has adopted, which is the shared nothing. How do we build the universe as quickly as possible and tear it down as quickly as possible and make sure we don't leak any of that out whilst we're doing it? And that is fantastic in a server client context where you don't know when your requests, the stateless requests and all of this kind of thing. But it just turns out that that's great for HTML and JavaScript. And if you've got HTML and JavaScript in your client native application, it works really well there too, even though there's not technically the HTTP stuff going on. There's not, and the network isn't involved and all of that, because the paradigm lends itself to like this very safe, performant, a sort of reliable paradigm for
performative, I think.
It's performative. Hi, I'm PHP. No, seriously.
The performant hypertext processor. Yeah.
I think that's really good, and it's slept on a little bit by people who go, oh, PHP isn't the right language for this. I think it allows a whole bunch of people who aren't used to systems programming and the kind of typical shared problems that you have with memory in building applications that way, to come into that space and just go like, I don't even have to think about this anymore. I don't even have to worry about memory and threads and whatever. I just write my PHP like it's receiving a request and it does some work and then it shuts down and that's it. So there's a couple of things there that I'm kind of very, very bullish on, how I think it's better. But like my experience of doing PHP for 20 years tells me that I'm not going to convince people to adopt it just because I think it's better. I think what will happen is one of two things. One is people start using it, they dislike it for whatever reasons, and it dies. People decide that they prefer other tooling, or other tooling comes out that is hands down the top of the market stuff that you just enables you to do things that you were never able to do with traditional things. Fine. And that's like an unfair fight, but that's just how it goes. The other way is, after a few years of people building richer, more interesting applications, more like flagship products with it, and its stability and performance improves, then it will be like people going, oh. And that might take the same amount of time it's taken Laravel to do the same thing, which has been, 10, 12, 13 years. But, I'm only just about to hit 40, so I've got another 10 years at least.
I hear you're not
I'm
retiring,
here for it.
ever.
No, probably not.
You'll be 104 and still coding.
Yeah. What have I done with my life?
Did you know PHP backwards is PHP?
Sweet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Native PHP Show, brought to you by Shane and Simon.
Brought to you by Native PHP, actually.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm excited for you guys.
I'm happy to talk about it more, but also, I do feel like we've talked about it a lot on the last few episodes.
Yeah, because it's exciting.
It is exciting. You guys
And
are
it's part of our
groundbreaking
lives.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like we can keep talking about it. That's fine. But I want
What else do you want to talk about, Simon? What else? What do you want to know?
I really want to know what kind of dog Simon has. The fact you haven't done DNA testing yet to know he or she is a girl, right? I think.
No, it's a boy. But
it is a boy dog. Okay, like come on, man.
Yeah.
What kind of dog is it? Four legs and a tail kind of dog.
Are you making fun of my jokes? Are you trying to make people laugh out of my making people laugh?
By the way, listener, if you don't know what I'm talking about right now, go check out the prior episode. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I listened back to that and I was like, oh, I must have hit a nerve. I didn't really realize. I was like, what kind of dog is that? Four legs and a tail.
I'm sorry, my sense of humor is just like a little bit more refined.
It must be all the beans and eggs you eat in the morning. I don't know.
Man, quick, Shane, get out that app that you were using before we started recording and have it roast Simon for a moment.
I'll just use this.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Actually, I could do that. You want to see what it says?
All of that was just a little bit of comedic relief. Shane, I don't know if we should do that on, well, whatever. We can mark it and always rip it out. So, if it starts throwing F-bombs everywhere.
I'm sitting here with my good friend Simon and Steven on our podcast, and Simon is getting a little sassy. Go ahead and roast him.
All right, buckle, because I'm about to tear Simon a new so wide you could shove Steven's fat head up it and still have room for a parade.
Oh my God.
Simon? Oh, you think that was too much? Sweetheart.
Yeah, I was about to say, we're definitely getting the explicit rating on Apple with this episode.
Whoa. All right.
And we will mark that section.
Not a native PHP app, just so everybody knows.
But it could be.
It could be.
It could be.
No,
you guys.
So, going back to that for a second. I actually, it's an interesting challenge. Something like Duolingo. You could just totally build that. Like, what is it about that app that feels tricky?
Yeah, that's like a great question.
Me?
Yeah, why'd you say that? You picked that app specifically. Why?
It has one of those UIs that almost feels. This is probably not the case. But it's like so non-box-like that it almost makes me think that it could have been done with like OpenGL. Like it's an actual graphics UI, not an element UI. Does that make sense?
You've seen those like web pages that are doing like JavaScript, Canvas, 3D work in the canvas.
Yeah.
Via the web.
Yeah.
And
maybe
with the CPUs in most modern devices, like the last 5 years, they can pretty much handle it without breaking a sweat.
Gotcha.
And it's up to 60 frames per second, and like
yeah.
The baseline standard for like UI performance, and the web view, like the baked-in browser, can handle that.
Yeah.
So.
I guess, like, I just pulled Duolingo because my wife uses it, and it looks like a really fancy UI. And to Shane's point, like, I'll be the first one to admit, if you told me, go build the Duolingo app in the browser, I could not do that. I would not be able to do that.
Why?
It's way too graphic-y.
You couldn't do it in a week, but you could do it. I mean, I
don't know. It's like some of the like. I guess with like a whole bunch of help from animation libraries and transition stuff, but like again, now we're just like. Let me see if I can pull out a different example. Maybe Duolingo. It's not even an app I use, so I don't even know. The answer's
going to be the same whichever one you think about. So there's kind of, in my view, there's two ways of doing really performant UI stuff on a phone. One is Canvas, The other
Okay.
is to use their native OpenGL like 3D rendering pipeline where you hit the metal, basically. You hit the graphics core, what it was built for, in the way that it's intended to be used. And not through layers of like the web view is figuring out that this is a GL layer that's being rendered inside itself, and you need to pipe some of that work to, through layers and layers of abstraction. So there's nothing stopping you from doing either of those in a native PHP app, except for the fact that we haven't got bindings for the GL stuff yet. And for the most part, I think what you would get to is you're not doing a lot of the work in PHP, but PHP is there for you to use. So I think you would, maybe the GL stuff would be a bit more PHP. You would have to leverage a bit more, but and maybe then it wouldn't be the right thing. I don't know. Like, that's just all theoretical from my perspective.
Yeah. Okay, so I think our point here is
get
that
very far with just the canvas and
yeah.
Question on this GL stuff real quick. So first of all, I want to do a little shout out to this guy named Alexandre JS William Elise from France, who reached out to me on LinkedIn the other day. Super excited about the work that I did with Android, and it was a cool conversation. But at the very end of the conversation, he said, "Have you heard of this project?" And I just looked at it, phpgl.net. Are you familiar?
Yep.
I've heard it.
Oh, okay.
I can't tell you the
I've never
single
seen
thing
this.
about it.
It's 3D with PHP or 2D. It's a graphics. You use a vector graphics API for drawing graphics and all sorts of stuff with PHP. Had no idea. Anyway, that's all.
Okay. So the conclusion here is I just don't know about that stuff. So when I say Duolingo would be hard, it's just a sign of my ignorance and not knowing. Like, I've seen the same thing. If you told me to go do Miro, like rebuild Miro, this is why I pulled it out for Shane with his little AI bolt.new thing. Like, that's just way, way beyond my front end skills.
This is the beauty of being able to use any of the web technologies that already exist. And you're not reliant upon, does native PHP support this? Because native PHP is just this like very small layer at the bottom.
Yeah. It's almost like it feels like a translation layer.
Well, it's not even that. It's just the execution layer. So you say, like, I want to put my business logic in PHP because that's what I know. But everything else, if you think of it as like the web, but it's running on the device, then you can have React components that just render absolutely fine on a mobile web browser working inside your app. Like, the PHP renders the initial state and it updates the view and, all of that kind of thing. But the actual work is being done by JavaScript in the web view, which was built to do JavaScript and be performant at doing JavaScript. So if the component that you want to use is a React component, like a canvas, and I don't mean web canvas, I mean like a Miro style thing, there'll be a React library that does that, Undoubtedly, there is already an open source one that will do that. And you can use that with your native PHP app. And now you have a Miro clone that you haven't had to learn how to do all that front end stuff, which you would have to, like, there probably aren't packages like that for Flutter and React Native,
And if there aren't as many as there would be just for web.
Exactly.
So there's going to be less competition and more opinionated things, and it's not going to be really the best tool that could exist for that.
They might be open source, but there's going to be far fewer people interacting with those libraries for those specific technologies versus the web technologies.
It's a good point.
Cool.
So
Anything other than native PHP we want to talk about on
No, my
this?
brain's stuck on that.
And not the joke of what kind of breed Simon's dog is.
So the dog.
Oh my god, it was a joke.
he doesn't actually have a dog.
I'm like a dog with a bone.
Wait, are you telling me the picture he had on his Laracon talk was fake?
AI, dude. Hello. How you doing?
Wife is fake. Don't tell her I said that. She's not. She's wonderful.
How could we tell her?
Oh, very good.
Okay, do you actually want to say something about your dog, Simon? We keep coming back to this. Like,
Yeah, he's beating around the bush.
Yeah.
Very evasive.
I'm never gonna find out the breed of my dog. Basically,
Why not? It's fun. Swab, get a little saliva, put it in a tube, ship it off.
fun.
Good to know.
so I will say
We did it
is
with our pups.
My wife has done that. So she I don't think she's got the results yet, but she got an email the other day to say, we've received your kit.
Spit.
You know, yeah, whatever.
Your kid. Well, that's funny. So this was recent.
Yeah.
Like this was
Yeah.
okay.
I don't think
Okay.
she's got the results. But she's trying because so she's Spanish, but her complexion and her hair color and all of these like little
Rubia.
details.
Rubia.
Yeah, but it's very unusual for the Canary Islands. Like there's
Is that where she's from?
few-
She's from Canary.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, it like when she was younger, people here, like other kids her age and even adults, would call her something. I can't remember what's the word that they use for not gringo. There's another word.
It's not Rubia.
But yeah, like
It's
a
not Rubia.
foreigner. A foreigner.
No, it's like a foreigner thing, as Stephen's saying, and I can't remember.
Oh.
They say it to me all the time, and I can't remember it.
Bean eater.
I'm just gonna
You just
leave.
killed his
How did
train
I
of
get him
thought
on
like
that? Out of everything, dude, Grok was roasting you, and that got you the
Oh,
beans.
man. So yeah, she's like, I need to just see if somewhere in my past there's some, other outside influence other than Spanish. So she's like waiting to find out if she's like proper native or something else.
You're gonna have to tell us the results now. You know this.
Yeah, that's fine. I think she's gonna be okay with that.
So she did it for
think-
herself. What about the dog?
Yeah, we're not that bothered about the dog. I mean, she just keep using the apps that are like the breed identifier, and every time the wheel spins, it's like comes back with something completely different.
That
It's like,
tail
no,
wags.
It's not that. It's like the hair's wrong, the shape of the nose is wrong, the teeth are wrong. It's just like
It's British also.
Ears is another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I mean, we
the
just did it
dog
for
is
fun.
Definitely canary.
Okay.
Well, of course.
There you go.
That's what canary means.
Yeah.
But yeah, my wife wanted to do it for our pups because they're supposed to. I mean, they're not supposed to. They're both rescues, so like, who freaking knows? But they are husky-like, but not normal husky looking, and so we're kind of curious, like, what else is going
They
on
look
there.
like
So she just kind of wanted to do it
Yoda.
for fun.
What do you mean by not normal husky looking? What do they look like?
So like a average husky male has a very loopy tail.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably, I'm guessing here a little bit, but like 50, 55 pounds, quite like lean looking, even though they have long hair, they're still fairly lean looking. Whereas one of our huskies is a bit like bigger chested, kind of bulkier.
Like a
his
wolf.
happy weight is like 65 pounds. The other one has neither of them have a loopy tail. The other one has like a super big bushy tail. The thing is like a dusting machine. And like just like his hips and stuff kind of remind us of a German Shepherd. Like basically the back half of him reminds us more of a German Shepherd than a husky. husky ears are usually a little bit closer together and very, like they're always up, but like they're a little bit closer together, whereas our guys's are like a little bit more off an angle. So anyways, we thought that like maybe there was some Malamute and some other breed I cannot recall. And yeah, that happens to kind of be the case. One of them is mostly like pure Siberian Husky, with a little bit of something else, I think. I can't fully remember. And then Kai, our other one that has like his back half looks German Shepherd. Yeah, he has like significant percentage of like 4 other breeds. So it was just fun.
Spits.
Just fun to learn. Just fun to know.
You know, something interesting about the web view on Android is that you cannot inspect the body of a post request. They don't let you. So what you have to do is inject HTML into the web view and some JavaScript that intercepts all post requests, and you create your own body. That then you can use that.
Shade is totally done with the Bucket podcast. He just wants native PHP podcast.
I am obsessed. Actually, I am obsessed with this. It's been.
Are you still working for Craig? Are you getting any any work done?
He doesn't know it actually. No, it's not. Yeah, I am. That's like. That's the only other thing that I'm really doing. Except I am going flying on Sunday. I need to. Yeah, I haven't flown in like 5 months, I think, or 4 months. So
Nice.
gonna go up and get current again. And I also have to do every 2 years. You have to do a biannual review, and they just do like an hour on the ground of like quizzing, kind of, and then an hour in the sky. And so I've got to do that by the end of April to keep my license. Which you actually don't lose your license, you just can't fly. So legally. So which you also can't get insurance, and so just keep it going. I'll do the review. So
But if you just got really wasted one day and decided, screw it, I'm going to fly this plane even though I haven't got my license renewed, no one's going to stop you, right?
Not if it's experimental.
Correct. No, even then. I mean, no, I mean, so the way that I do it, I rent planes. There's a website you go to for the school, different schools, and you log in and you say, I want this plane for this. And I went to do that the other day because there's a couple of Boy Scouts in my son's scout troop that they're super into aviation. They're always taking pictures of planes flying by and talking about this and that. And they're like, can you take us up sometime? So I've been telling them and their dads like, yes, for like a year. I've been saying this. So it's time. I got to make good on it. Every time I see them, they're more and more sad and like, oh, do you think maybe next in 3 weeks or something? Maybe, like, oh, all right, let's do this. So I went to reserve the other day, and it's like, you haven't flown here in more than 90 days. So yeah, I have to go up with an instructor. So there are some checks that they do, but once I fulfill like the local schools, whatever requirements they have, technically I could just go and reserve a plane, hop in and fly regardless. The thing is, you can get caught and you will never get your license back. You will lose your license and you will regret that mistake. I mean, in America, the aviation is taking, especially these days, very seriously. They are hyper cautious about everything, and it's for good reason. And I'm always a safe, not sorry kind of guy, especially with aviation. My philosophy is until we are more than 1,000 feet off the ground, the flight is canceled. We're not going to go fly. So I'm always ready to say nope for whatever reason. And I've done it a few times where it's just a windier day than I expected, or it picked up right before we were going to take off. And I mean, we're taxied, we're on the runway, and I'm like, I'm going to abort. We're not going to fly because I'd rather be safe. They say taking off is optional, landing is mandatory.
I think you have to say that in every episode going forwards, because I think you've said it almost in every episode.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I feel like
where we've talked about you flying.
I think the saying should be taking off is optional. Landing is automatic. It's just how gentle it is.
Yeah, well,
that
that's
you
true
can
too.
control.
That's true.
You will always come back down.
You always come down.
Do you get any like insight into or maybe that's not by default? I don't really know how this works, so my question is going to sound really stupid to the people who do know, which I don't care about. So, do you get any insight into like what happens in some of the events? I'll call them events, for want of a better word, of recent months, with accidents, let's say, of commercial airlines.
Okay, so yes and no. No, I don't get any more information than anybody else, right? I don't have access to any different information than anybody else in the general public has access to. The difference, though, is that with experience, I can relate to and understand different elements of flight or different parts of flight that the general public wouldn't understand, like what it's like. So Washington, D.C., for example, what it's like flying at night, coming in to land, and you're on your descent path to land. I know what that feeling is like, and I know what your eyes can and cannot see. You can't see below you. You can't really see too much above you, depending on the angles. And so like, some of those things have to be explained to people for them to really get in the same context of what a pilot would experience. So, I mean, there's like atclive.net or whatever that site is that you can listen back on anything in the last 24 or 48 hours in the United States, at least. All of the communication on any frequency you can listen to. So that's available for the public. It's free. The app is like $3 or $4 a year or something like that. But yeah, we can listen to all that stuff. The other thing is I haven't watched them in a while, but there are some channels that I follow, YouTube channels, where some guys that have been flying for 40 years or whatever, or Opposing Bases is a great podcast out of Greenville, North Carolina, or Greensboro, North Carolina.
Oh,
Greensboro.
Okay.
Yeah, they're two air traffic controllers that were both ex-military pilots also. One helicopter, one airplane, and now they're ATC for like 20-something years, and they just talk about everything related to safety. They just show like the other side that pilots don't ever listen to or really understand, the whole air traffic control side of things. Like, how do we keep separation between planes? Well, how do you control speeds for different things? And what are we looking at? What are we not looking at? What is the best way to call and ask for help or to get clearance for an airspace and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like, all these things. Yeah, I pay attention to a lot of these things. And I take pride in the fact that I do study accidents. I do study what can go wrong, really, is what it boils down to. What were they not paying attention to? What different decisions could they have made to have lived that day or to have survived that event? Mm-hmm. And so I'm a recreational pilot. I don't have to fly. I choose to fly. I will choose to fly in the nicest weather. If there's wind, I don't have to go, and it's a little bumpy and it's like a little nerve wracking and all this, but it's like, hey, I can choose not to. And sometimes I go on purpose just to be more proficient in those conditions in case they happen sometime when I'm not expecting it to also. So, but I can control that. I don't have to go fly. I don't have to clock in or clock out. I don't have to, any of that stuff. So, it is kind of nice. It's also more expensive. No one's paying me to go. So, but it's a fun hobby. It is fun. And it's cool to show to people too, for sure. I know Steven wants to go. I'm looking for some time to do it. It's just, yeah, we almost went, what was it? January?
Something like that.
Yeah. We almost went up. We canceled.
Damn.
It's all right.
You've still got to fly to the
We're all
Canary
busy.
Islands. You can come to the Canaries, remember? Straight
I can.
over the...
Yeah. My little 172.
That sounds awful.
Flying slow enough over the ocean I can actually go fishing while I'm flying.
Just
and catch something.
Leave the controls and sit with your legs dangling
Autopilot.
out the door.
Yeah, sure. Catch a breeze. Why not? Yeah.
How are we doing for
Well,
time,
fellas,
guys?
Yeah, I gotta sign off. So
Oh.
y'all want to keep going and just continue with the Shane Simon theme? That's cool with me, but I gotta skedaddle.
I should. It's later than normal for me, so I should do to use this as my out.
Actually, this time of day, it's always this time for me. So,
you know what I mean.
Simon,
I'm gonna throw my dog at you.
I'll feed him some beans. He'll feel right at home.
Don't let him use grok or whatever that is.
All right, are we doing
So
a sign
funny.
off?
Yes. You know, Aaron, thank you for listening with Tendai so he doesn't feel so lonely. If either of you liked any part of this, feel free to share. Get the word about Android and iOS and NativePHP into more and more people. Let's raise awareness. Let's fight for the cause. We should get some like purple and teal little ribbons to wear on the let's looking forward to the next time, everybody. So
Hell
peace.
yeah, brother. Okay.
There's always
Till
a
next week.
time.
Always the next time. That's what she said.
See you guys.